Hi, everybody. Welcome to iScreemZ. It is a very exciting edition today. I have a wonderful guest to share with you. If there were a Premier League of horror icon guests at conventions, this lady would be in number 5 with a bullet. There's literally nobody out there that doesn't have a wonderful PJ Souls story. PJ Souls, welcome to iScreemZ.
Thank you so much. It's a total pleasure to be here.
I gotta tell you, you know what? Before we get into this, joking aside, literally my inbox blew up the minute I have had 1,000,001. Oh my God, when I met PJ stories. So, you know,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, you're literally you're like a jewel in the crown of horror celebrity. So it's wonderful to have you here.
That's really nice to hear.
Thank you. I gotta say, you know, your pre-acting life, before we kind of get into that, is really fascinating to me. You know, I mean, you're born in Germany. You pretty much traveled all over the world with your family, you know, Venezuela, Belgium, you know, Morocco, to name but a few. And you initially wanted to be the first female ambassador to the Soviet Union. What are your memories from those years?
Well, I think of my childhood as very unusual and idyllic, and I took to it very well. I love learning French. I love learning Spanish, and then ultimately Russian in college. But it's because we took a school trip from our high school, International School of Brussels in Belgium, to Russia. And I just thought, wow, this I really like this. You know, I always thought I would do something in terms of you know, the UN, and so it just sort of was sort of what I kind of gravitated to all along in all these countries and all these different schools. They were mostly American schools. They did have drama groups, and I was always a part of that too, but that was just for fun. It was, you know, nothing that I thought would ever become a career. So
right. So I guess connecting the dots there, where did you, at what point what was the catalyst that kind of turned your dreams from being a part of the UN to kind of acting as a career?
Well, when I went to college in New York State, my parents then moved to Istanbul, Turkey. And my roommate was from Manhattan. And instead of visiting my parents in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I stayed with Lorraine in Manhattan and happened upon the Actors Studio. And there was a sign that said, "We'll trade running the spot during the weekend productions for auditing classes." So since I always had an interest in acting, I thought, well, I'll give it a go. So I got the job. It was an exchange, not for money, but I met a guy there who ran the Joshua Light Show, actually owned the Joshua Light Show, Joshua, and he inquired after the show if I was actually interested in being an actress. And I said, I guess, I don't know. It was kind of, you know, I was 19. It was fun. I had 2 months to go in Manhattan there. And he suggested that he introduce me to his sister, Deborah White's agent, Lester Lewis. So he did. And just for a lark, he sent me on a couple of commercials, and I got the first 4 commercials I went up for.
Amazing.
So I made some money that summer, and as you said, the bug was planted.
So you start out in commercials and kind of doing some TV roles, right?
I didn't do TV roles in New York. I did commercials, and then I got a part on a soap opera, Love Is Many Splendid thing. Okay. But I also, people suggested, hey, to make extra money, you should do modeling. So I went with Stewart Models.
Okay.
And, I had a lot of modeling gigs. Back in the day, you went around, you took your portfolio book. At the time, I tried riding my bicycle, very dangerous in New York. So I ended up walking a lot. And you exchange, the photographer might want to try out a new light or something. So you build your portfolio with pictures. And I did get a lot of, modeling gigs for Teen Magazine, Glamour, all those magazines. And so it was pretty exciting. I was having a great time in New York City.
So then you start moving on to your little do you realize at that point your big break is right around the corner there. with Carrie, right?
What happened was that, most of my friends, they were either models or they were actors. Now,
Yep.
actors, and musicians. I was married to musician Stephen Souls, and we knew the cast from Hair, and we were up late and listening to all the live music at Max's Kansas City and JP's and all those places. But I wasn't really a fan of the nightlife. I didn't smoke. I didn't do drugs. I couldn't stay up late, and I wasn't really interested in Broadway or off Broadway because
Mhm.
I just didn't like the nightlife. It was really hard on me. So I was more of an early morning person. So people were saying, well, you know what? If you want to try movies, you should go to LA.
Cool.
So it sort of, went hand in hand at that time. Steve and I decided we maybe, we're too young to have gotten married, and we parted ways, and he ended up coming out to LA too and having a nice life out there, but we did end up getting divorced. But in any event, I went first and I came to LA, just a suitcase in hand, went to the Magic Hotel because it was near my modeling agency. Stuart Models said Nina Blanchard is down the street, on Highland Avenue. And she's the one, Nina Blanchard, who sent me out on the joint casting session for Carrie Star Wars. But at that time, nobody really knew George Lucas. Nobody really knew Brian De Palma. It wasn't like, go see these two amazing directors. It was, these two directors are looking at all the teenagers of town. You want to go. So,
Okay.
and I was only in town 2 weeks. So it was magical, meant to be.
Wow, wow. So, something that fascinates me about Carrie and you specifically yourself, people talk about cursed movies. They talk about Poltergeist and, the Amityville Horror. Carrie seems to me to be the complete opposite. You've got this, it launched Stephen King's career. Right. Yourself, so many fascinating young actors along with you: John Travolta, Nancy Allen, William I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, Amy Irving, Betty, but I mean, absolutely. Brian De Palma had a very good eye for casting, because out of that initial casting session, of which I walked in, didn't say anything. He looked at George Lucas, said, I'll put her on my list. George said, fine, went to go, left to go. He said, wear that red hat next audition. And the next 3 auditions were at his apartment on Fountain Avenue. And everyone who ended up in the movie was at those 3 auditions. And we sat around on the floor around his coffee table, and we all took turns reading all the different parts, different characters, I think, so he could hear the film come alive in his head. And he had the storyboard on every square inch of his dining room walls. 4 walls, the entire movie of Carrie was drawn out. I was so surprised. I mean, I didn't know how movies were made, and I thought, well, I guess you draw them out first. But
wow, yeah.
So it's got a very good eye for casting. So of course, and the only one was Sissy Spacek, because Amy Irving really thought that she was going to play Carrie. But Jack Fisk, who was married to Sissy, was already signed on as the set designer. And he kept begging Brian. And the day of the screen test, I tested for Chris Hargensen for the part that went to Nancy Allen, because the part of Norma really only had 1 line, wasn't in the Stephen King book, but he needed an extra character just for fun, I guess. And Sissy Spacek shows up in this little sailor dress, and we're like, who's she? I knew her from New York because she was trying to be a musician. I think she had already done Prime Cut. And in any event, she blew everyone away with her screen test. And, she and really Piper Laurie gave the movie the super hyper credibility that it had,
Mm-hmm. You got hurt on the set, right?
Well, yes, I was in the prom sequence when everybody had to meet their end. And Brian thought it was really last minute. None of this was in the script, but he thought, oh, we'll just bash her about with those. The fire chief said, no, the water is too strong. I don't want to hurt her. But Dick Syker, the stunt coordinator, said, well, I'll man the hose. I'll make sure she'll be fine. But, Brian wanted my head to be batted around, looked like it broke my neck. And, when I turned, the full force of the fire hose went in my ear and broke my eardrum. And I just slid down the stairs. And I think I passed out. The grips grabbed me, brought me into my dressing room. So for about 6 months, I had to go to the doctor and get drops put in my ear. But now I can hear better than ever. So I think it didn't hurt me that much.
Excellent. Good, 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 good. So, again, wonderful young cast, all of you guys, on your launch pad. What was the feeling when it was completed and you were all sort of kind of seeing the finished product for the first time there? What was the feeling?
Well, funny enough, most directors will not let you anywhere near dailies. Brian encouraged it. In fact, after every day of shooting, we'd Culver City Studios. We went to the screening room and we were allowed to come and see what we had filmed the day before. So it was very exciting. We all got to see what we looked like on screen. We had an idea of what the movie was going to look like. So it wasn't a big surprise, obviously, music and all that, but it was really very nice. Most of us, it was either our first movie or, and it just gave us a camaraderie that was really felt when you watched the movie, I think. So,
oh yeah.
So, but when we did finally see it, I just, of course, like everybody else, shot out of my seat when the hand comes up, even though I watched Sissy film that, because she insisted that be her hand. She didn't want a stunt person. She didn't want a fake hand. So her husband designed a box and they put oxygen in it and she crawled in it and they put it in the ground and she shot her hand up. So she was amazing. She slept in the back of the studio for 3 days with the blood on her once the bucket had fallen on her because she wanted it to match. They did touch-ups, but she would sleep like this. So, she didn't have to wash it off every day and it wouldn't match. So, but she just was amazing. So.
You talk about that scene with the hand. I gotta confess, I'm 50 years old and still when I watch the movie, I'm waiting for that. It's like the bit with the head that comes out of the boat in Jaws. I'm just still sitting there like, oh my God, I know that hand's coming at me second, but whatever. So
well, he sets you up with that beautiful music. You think, okay, it's a beautiful, you don't know it's a dream really. It's just, Amy Irving's beautiful curls are blowing in the wind and she's bringing flowers and then you're set, you're relaxed and thinking, oh, that's so lovely. And then suddenly you're jolted. I think there were a few heart attacks across the country when that, yeah, okay, no, but I mean real heart attacks.
Yeah.
My parents went to see it at a theater. Yeah, my parents went to see it at a theater in Phoenix and they said a woman had to be carried out on a stretcher. So it was for in those days, that was a pretty shocking kind of a thing,
Big time, big time. So the story as I know it, and obviously please fact check me on this if I'm wrong, but John Carpenter loved you so much in that movie that he wrote the role of Linda in Halloween with Deborah Hill specifically with you in mind. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. But he didn't show his cards during the audition, although obviously it's very rare to meet with just the director and read with the director as opposed to the casting person. So, when I did get the call to meet with John, he read with me. We read a scene and afterwards he offered me the part. And I was like, oh, I'd love to do it. That's fantastic. And he said, well, you're the only one that read the word totally how I hear it. And I said, well, how else would you say it? And he goes, that's why you got the part. So, but he did tell me afterwards that he loved my part in Carrie. So
amazing.
After Carrie, though, I had done a lot of television. They're called guest leads on different shows. And every time I would go on an audition, of course, everyone from Carrie was there. But sometimes I would get it. And sometimes other Nancy would get one or Amy would get one. But, that was our card to get into the casting, because they would, at that time, they only maybe let six people at a time. They had their favorites and you had to have done something for your agent to get you in the door. So it's very important to have had that first credit.
Right, for sure, absolutely. So what were your initial, so when you get the full kind of script of Halloween, what were your initial thoughts on reading that?
Well, like I usually tell everybody, for me, it was the part. So it's about the part. Obviously, I saw the effect of Carrie. That was a big studio picture. That was amazing. I didn't really like working in television. It was too quick. As being the guest lead, you were in and out. You sometimes had directors that, I don't know, there wasn't really my cup of tea, and the characters were very thin. You tried to do what you could with them. But in this, the character of Linda was just delicious, delightful, and I liked the story. I wasn't what you would say a fan of horror, so it wasn't that. But after meeting John and then Deborah Hill on that first day, I was so excited because they seemed like these two young kids that were making this movie. And I had total faith in that it was going to be great. But, as far as the script, okay, it's, I didn't have any judgment. All I was thinking of is, oh, gosh, I hope I do a really good job, because then that will get me into the next door. You're always thinking of building your career and climbing the ladder and, trying to get to that next part. So,
yeah, for sure. And like Carrie, the chemistry, between yourself, Jamie Lee, and Nancy Loomis, there was a great authenticity there. Was there a big camaraderie between you three on the set?
well, that again is the magic of casting, because Nancy was good friends with John. She was married to Tommy Wallace at the time. They were friends from USC. Obviously, Jamie, they loved the idea that she was Janet Leigh's daughter, and she was 19, and that was her first part. She probably was more terrified than any of us, because she didn't want to get fired, of which she certainly wasn't, but she had that initial fear. And from day one, we just embraced our roles and just became these giddy schoolgirls. I mean, it was like a chance to return to high school. I was already in my 20s, so was Nancy. Jamie was 19, so she was the youngest one. So, but we just, it just seemed like, for a 21-day shoot, you're just gonna go for the joyful ride, and it was, and it was because of the atmosphere of the set. John Carpenter has a very gentle way of speaking. He encourages you to collaborate, anything you want to offer, he's open to. Deborah too was, just everybody was like, I hate to use the word love fest, but it just was a wonderful atmosphere.
Yeah, that's that, and again, it carries through in the, you see it's on screen, you see it, you see that chemistry on screen.
Yeah.
That there's one guy we haven't spoke about just yet, and that is the big guy, Michael Myers. So I got to ask
Donald Pleasance.
Yeah, well, Donald hey, actually, you know what? Let's back off on Michael Myers for a second. Did you actually, because I know Donald was on set for like 3 days or something. Did you interact with him at all?
I had no scenes with him, and we would have lunch with him, and he just seemed to smile at us, because again, we were chattering and laughing, and I said to John, I said, I don't know, does he like us? He seems like he doesn't want to talk to us. And he said, he's in character. He's a method actor. From the minute he gets to the set, he's going to be in character. Just try not to bother him. So we didn't. And, had I known really more about him, because I didn't, I probably would have wanted to ask a few questions. But, so for the most part, he was Dr. Loomis to us, not Donald Pleasance.
Nice. So Michael Myers, and this is a question I'm dying to ask you, and that is, you're reading the script, and you've got these characters that are on page. What was the feeling when you first kind of encountered, Nick Castle in the costume? What was your impression there? Did you realize that this was this iconic new movie monster that you were seeing here?
No, it seemed silly. It was a mask. It was, overalls. And Nick was really, again, a friend of John's from USC, and hanging around to see what tips he could get or give in terms of directing, because that's what he wanted to do. And Tommy Wallace was really supposed to really be Michael Myers with the mask on, so except for the stunts, and then Tony Moran at the end there when he takes off the mask.
Right.
But and I think Tommy was on an errand when it came time for my scene in the bedroom, and also, you know, the killing of Bob in the kitchen. So I think that was the first time he asked Nick to put on the costume, because Tommy hadn't come back yet from whatever errand he was doing. And no, when you're involved in it at that level, and it's kind of funny, you know, he put it on, everyone laughs. Obviously it's funny when he swings open the door and he's got the sheet on. You know, playing it out for the first time, it's funny. And then everybody asked me, is it scary that he strangled you? And I said, no, the first 3 takes, of which John always would have preferred 1 take, maybe 2 for lighting and focus. But we went 3 takes with me being strangled and laughing because Nick Castle was tickling my neck so much. So I had to keep saying, Nick, you're going to have to pull it a little harder if you're going to tickle me. So that's my memory of that. But no, it's never scary. You know who's under it. You know you're acting. So it's harder because you know you're obviously creating. You're part of the creative process. You're not, you know, really scared.
No, absolutely, for sure, for sure. What would you say is, you could boil it down to what would you say was the most important thing for your own development that you learned on the set of that particular movie?
Oh, I think working with other actors, being in the moment, and having a director that really cared about what you thought and what you might like to try, and being willing to, you know, work with you in that way. He made us feel 100% a part of the process. We weren't in his movie, we were in our movie. And that was my biggest takeaway. Brian De Palma, that was his movie, and we were his actors, and it was a whole other experience. It was fun as my first movie. But John Carpenter, it was, you know, he was so, I don't know, I'll be forever grateful for having that experience, because it's really rare. And it's just so much more fun when you really feel like your contributions mean something, and your thoughts and your ideas and your imagination helps a project. And of course, when we went, that we didn't get to see the dailies. They were very concerned, of course, because, you know, like today you can see what you're filming. Back then, you know, you had to wait till the dailies the next day, or probably that night, and we weren't invited to those because it was such a rushed 21 shooting schedule, was on. But when we did have the cast and crew screening, I was just blown away by the music, and I had no idea John was going to do the music, let alone write it and perform it. I didn't know he was a musician, and so that part was just amazing. So to me, he's just an amazing creative person.
Wow. That's lovely to hear that it was such a collaborative experience like that. That's really awesome, because it seems that way from a viewer perspective. When you watched it afterwards and you say you saw your first full screening, you know, of it, when did you even get that sense that, wow, this is something real? Because I mean, it's really a special film. It completely upended and reshaped the genre. Did you get that feeling at all, or was it just like, this is a great film? We've made a great film here.
I loved it. I thought it was a really good film. I don't know that I would call it a great film now. I think it's a great film. I was not a part of the genre of horror movies, so that wasn't how I was judging it. Having done Carrie, and that was a studio film, and having known that independent films don't get the push, they don't get the budget for advertising, they don't get the theaters interested. And that part of it, you know, was not in my mindset at the time. As an actress, I'm again thinking, oh, I love it. It's great. My scenes are awesome. I'm surely my agent's going to get me in the door to another audition because of this movie. So That's where I was thinking. But, I'm not thinking box office. I'm not thinking of anything like that because, we were all getting scale, which we were happy to get because it was still a lot of money and it paid our apartments. And so, but I had no idea it was going to have the impact and long lasting impact that it's had. It just blows my mind, but I'm so grateful. And still at conventions and, every place I go, that is the movie that they love the most, even with all the ones that came after. So I'm so glad I was in the original Halloween.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And we can't let go of you. We can't let go of you, PJ. You're ours for life.
You can't quit me.
We can't. No, we can't. Absolutely not. So you speaking of movies that came afterwards, well, obviously you got conscripted for Private Benjamin and Stripes. You were in the military.
Well, after that was Rock and Roll High School, and Alan Arkish had seen me in Carrie and Halloween. So he had me come in for Rock and Roll High School again. That is one of my most treasured movies because that was my last teenage role. Wow. I had never heard of the Ramones. I ran around the house screaming, "What is this music? This is music! Ah, I have to be their number one fan." Ah. But that was a labor of love. And again, like John Carpenter, Alan Arkish made it a very collaborative effort. And it was just a joy to make, and the Ramones were awesome. They were very shy and very quiet, bewildered, I think, because especially Johnny loved Roger Corman movies. So to be in one, he was sort of flabbergasted, but we drew them out. We got them to perform, and I love it. It's their Hard Day's Night, and I just think it's a really special movie. More and more people are watching that.
Right.
I just went to a convention in Arizona, and the teenagers are just, they come to my table with their families. Everyone, looks at the Halloween pictures at Stripes, and then they go right to Rock and Roll High School. I love that movie. So, it's just amazing.
How was Private Benjamin for you working with Goldie Hawn there?
That was awesome. She was the producer as well as the star, so very little time for chit chat. Plus, she also had she had Kate Hudson, who was on the set. She was only 3 months old. I have Polaroid pictures of Kate Hudson. Her face looks exactly the same. Adorable. And again, it was another show with a lot of camaraderie between us girls. We had a really good time. And of course, I played Wanda Winter, who was the very uptight one, a private that did everything perfectly and made her bed perfectly so the quarter bounced. And then I get caught in the war games with Craig T. Nelson because I had a moment where I slipped up. But I wear the same Army uniform in Private Benjamin as Stripes, because when I got the part for Stripes, I went to Western costume, and it was, I think, only a year or two apart. And they said, "Well, we still have your costume. We still have your Army uniform and your boots from Private Benjamin." Of course, it fits. It was only like maybe a year or two later. So that was kind of exciting that, that was my uniform in both movies.
For both movies. That's amazing. That's kind of a unique thing there, right there.
Right.
So I got to ask you, obviously, I mean, of course, I'm going to ask you, what it was like working with Bill Murray on Stripes. Of course, I'm going to ask you that. But before I do that, I'm a Blade Runner guy. That's my favorite movie of all time. So I got to ask
really?
you. Yeah, I love it to death. Love it to death. So I got to ask you, what was it like working with Sean Young?
Well, I dubbed her Sean Very Young because I think Stripes was her first movie, and she would question Bill Murray's takes sometimes after we would shoot a scene. She'd say, "Is that how you're going to say that line?" And I'd go, Sean, what are you saying?" So she became known as Sean Very Young. She's beautiful. Obviously, we had a lot of fun too. We had several scenes that showed our, day to day in the Army, but they were cut out due to the fact that the movie wasn't about us. But well, we definitely had a good time.
Amazing. That's amazing. And Bill Murray from everything.
Remember, it was really Ivan Harold Ramis who suggested. I'm losing you.
Yeah, I'm losing you too. Sorry, we just had a little bit. Sorry, please
continue. A little blip. Okay, a little glitch. Okay.
Yeah, so you were saying Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman.
Oh, I think they suggested her to Ridley Scott because the call was out for someone, with dark hair. Obviously, I wasn't right, but and they were pretty much responsible, I think, for her getting in the door because I think, in those days, you put the casting call out and see maybe 300 people across the country, from New York to Chicago to, Houston, wherever there were big casting hubs. And even on Stripes, I came in at the last minute because they already had Sean. They were already starting shooting at Fort Knox. I went right from Marshall, Texas, where I did a movie with Don Johnson called Soggy Bottom USA, and flew up there, did a scene with Harold, came home, and the next day I was on a plane back. So, so when those calls go out, people are well aware, and I guess so. She owes Blade Runner to Harold and Ivan.
You know what? That's a really, you filled in an interesting blank for me there. I really appreciate that. That's amazing. How was working with Bill on Stripes?
Well, I always tell everybody he's moody, and I don't think it's a big surprise. Back in the day when you were doing press for it, we go, oh, we had so much fun. And yes, we had fun. But the truth is, he was very moody and he was hard to work with, except when the camera was rolling. And that's probably why he was moody. So I understand. It just, made it hard for the rest of us to have the lead guy kind of always be a little down or, not being happy with us, because we're all happy to be there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to ask you, because I know you get asked about Stripes, you get asked about Private Benjamin, Halloween, Carrie, all these movies. You've had such a prolific career, and you've done so many great things over the years. What's the one role, if you could say to someone, listen, you know what, put aside all this stuff for 5 minutes. This is a role that I'd really like you to see that I did. What would that role be, PJ?
Well, my heart is completely invested in Riff Randall in Rock and Roll High School. That was my last teenage role. I was pretty much in every scene. It was filmed in 1978. And in February 1978, my older brother, only 2 years older, died tragically in a private plane crash. And it was a horrible time for my family. But then I got the audition for Rock and Roll High School. And, sometimes when those tragic things happen, you get a burst you get a vision that you've got to live your life, because life is short and it can end like it did for my brother. I've lived so many decades more than he did. But so I feel like I brought that feeling of that burst of energy, which I also wanted to match with the Ramones music. As much as I didn't understand it at the time, I did get that they had an energy thing going, and I wanted to match that since I was their #1 fan. And then I got all the wardrobe myself. I spent most of my salary on my wardrobe because I wanted her to pop off the screen. So I just love her. I also love her because that was not me in high school. That was a fantasy of what it would be like to be an American teenager, having grown up in all these countries and learning different languages and cultures, and being with embassy kids and army brats, but I was a straight A student. I was editor of my school paper. I was taking care of my younger brother, who was 7 years younger, very super responsible. So this was my chance and an idea, my dream of playing the quintessential American teenager. So I love that movie, and I think the Ramones are amazing in it. And if you knew the Ramones first and then came to the movie, great. If you knew the movie first and then found the Ramones, great. But it's just also a little time capsule, and it makes you feel good. It's a really fun, like Stripes, it's a fun movie. And it's lasted the test of time. That's the amazing part.
You know, when you carry a movie so close to your heart like that, as you obviously, it's obviously such a personal experience to you. This may be a difficult question, but what is the, if you were to boil it down to one beautiful memory from that entire shoot, what would it be?
I guess, the fantasy scene when Joey is singing to me and I Want You Around. I love that song. And that was day one of shooting. That was when I first met the Ramones. How do you do? These are the Ramones. And then laying on that bed pretending to smoke a joint. It was Rosemary. I'd never smoked a joint before. I was pretending. I obviously had friends that did, so I knew how to do it. But I just think it's, if you can say that it's a beautiful scene, it's just such a fantasy. And I love the way that Alan Arkish put it together. And it's just really romantic, and it makes, Joey just look like a rock star. And his brother even said when he was writing his book, Mickey Lee, that scene in particular made Joey feel so special, because here I was looking at him with such adoring eyes. Yes, I was supposed to be number one fan, but also had a little crush on Joey. So I just love that scene.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's, I like that. I love hearing that. That's really cool. You've recently, you're always on the go. You're always literally, you're heading to conventions, or you're shooting, or whatever. You just reprised the role of Linda for the for the pinball game that's coming out there.
Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. When I got that call, that was an email, and I was talking to my boyfriend. I was like, what is that? You mean a pinball machine that's gonna have that's creepy, that's weird. I'm not being a pinball person myself, but after meeting with them and hearing what they had to say, and then obviously they asked me to read the lines and be part of it, as I was thought, wow, that's amazing. I get to be the voice of the pinball machine. Yeah, totally. You scored, man. You got it. I mean, it's hilarious. So I'm very excited that it sold out in 3 hours.
Listen, I'm not surprised. I watched the video for the game and I'm like, wow, if I had the money to drop on that right now, like, boom, I'd be there. It's incredible. So what's on the horizon for you?
Plus, that's beautiful artwork.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And they hand make each one. I mean, it's just amazing. The father and son that do it, their company is just amazing. So good on them.
Yeah, indeed, good on them indeed. What's on the horizon for you next, PJ? Where will we see you next?
I did have the voiceover in the new Halloween, the past one, and now there's a little something in the one that's coming out. It's not a voiceover, but it's something. That's all I'm allowed to say. I wish they would give me an actual role. I don't have to play Linda. I could play, the grandmother that lives down the street. I don't know. Be creative. Come on, David Gordon Green. But did
you hear that, David Gordon Green?
Hey, I was excited they let me do the voiceover as the teacher, and I did say I would do it as long as I could say totally, and they agreed to that. So that was cool, and my fans love it. I signed a lot of posters from that movie, so from that Halloween.
Amazing.
But yeah, I mean, as far as conventions, I got a whole bunch of conventions. The one that's in Manchester for the Love of Horror is going to be October 16th through 17th. So if you are planning a trip back there, wait till October.
You know what? I'm actually, I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Did you come to Canada at all? We'd love to see you up in Canada.
I did go to one in Calgary a couple of years ago. It was awesome. So, but yeah, no, that was the only one. But, Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, I'm going to that. I'm going to Horror Hound in Cincinnati. So I've got a pretty full schedule with my manager, Sean Clark. He puts together a nice schedule for me now that we're back. Everybody in Phoenix this past weekend, we're so excited. And, there were families and babies and strollers, and it was exciting to see once again, because thought about it, but a year ago, we're like, gosh, is it ever going to happen again?
Right.
So because of the pandemic,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's completely upended everything, right? So there's one last thing that I want to ask you, and that I ask this of every lady that's nice enough to do one of these interviews. There are a lot of young girls and young women that are watching these interviews. You're an inspiration. There's another someone that wants to be the next PJ Souls out there, wants to get into the industry. What do you say to someone like that? What's your advice to someone like that? Your unique advice to some lady that's watching, wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Well, today the business has changed. The industry has changed so much. It's so hard because with social media, I think they choose people according to how many followers they have. That wasn't our case at all. It was all based on the casting people really getting to know your work through your agent submitting you, and then your audition at the moment. Now there's self-tape auditions. You do it at home, you send it in but I would say that, if it's what you really want to do, you have to somehow be your unique self. I think in today's world, being completely who you are and giving up yourself, probably the most important thing you can do. When you create a character, you are working from the script, but you're also putting inside of her who you are in order to make it organic and authentic. And so, in terms of performance, I would say that would be the key. But in terms of how you go about it with an agent or, an Instagram follower, that's just a tough thing that I'm not completely, educated in, although I see it all the time. People, every day posting something of themselves on Instagram. So I think it's more about how many followers you have, and how original and unique you can be to get people's attention. But always be true to yourself is what I would say.
I think that's that. You know what? That's amazing advice, and that's timeless advice, because no matter how social media changes, being unique,
Right.
being yourself never does, right? Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion to any of the fans out there that'll be watching this interview?
Oh, I'm so grateful for all my fans, because you're the reason that these movies, and I'm talking Stripes, Halloween, Carrie, Rock and Roll High School, and a lot of the other ones, even some of, my episode of Airwolf. I just love that fans embrace your entire filmography. And I'm so grateful for the love and the gratitude, and the fact that our movies have entertained so many generations and continue to, and that they're getting their children involved and their grandchildren. My grandchildren are going to see these movies, and I can't wait until they're older. That's you, Anna.
Amazing.
So a big thank you to all the fans who are really my friends.
PJ Souls, you have been an absolute delight. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. I really appreciate it. And you talk about people being themselves. Keep on being you, because people love you for it. Okay.
You're totally welcome.
Thank you.